Would you recommend Celebration Bar Review to somebody that's repeating the exam?
I absolutely would. And the reason for that is because the program was customizable to what I needed. I was coming at this entire career from a non-traditional law student and working full time. I felt like I needed a program and a coach that understood where I was coming from and was able to customize the program in a way that would make me successful. And I had that with Celebration.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Hanging Out with Successful Bar Exam Takers. And we have a story today that I'm really excited to share with you because this is a student who really persevered and worked hard, and she got an extraordinary jump in her score. And I'm excited to be able to share that story. Welcome to the show, Elizabeth. How are you today?
Thank you, Jackson.
It's great to be with you. Elizabeth, you've had quite a journey on the bar exam. You took the UBE in February of 2024. And can you tell our audience what your score was?
264.
And what does a 264 allow you to do?
264 allows me to waive into several jurisdictions, which I was just thrilled about. After struggling and not being successful on previous exams, this was my fourth time taking the exam. The first two times were in Florida, and I was unsuccessful there and was not using Celebration Bar Review at that point. And I moved to Pennsylvania and took the UBE.
What was your score on that first UBE test?
It was at 242, I believe.
Okay. So to be clear, you went from a 242 to a 264. That is a pretty extraordinary jump, wouldn't you say?
Yes, I would say it is.
Congratulations. That's awesome. So I want to unpack a little bit about what happened because I think what our audience would like to know is what did she do? That's a lot of scale points. What did you do?
Quite honestly, this time was different because I believed that I could pass. Yes. Yeah, I believed I could pass. I believed I deserved to pass and that it was my time to pass. And I just kept telling myself that. And it was amazing. I just thought being terribly nervous about the exam, thinking that it's one of the hardest exams that anyone could possibly take, which may be true or may not, but it certainly is a very challenging exam, as everyone watching this video is probably aware. I realized that thinking about it with a negative mindset did not work before, and I needed to do something different. So I thought, what do I have to lose? The worst that can happen is that I just don't pass again. But I'm a happier person believing that I could do it. And I did do it.
And you and I worked together, and it was remarkable to watch the transformation that occurred in your mindset. And I think sometimes people will say, didn't she learn the rule against perpetuities better or memorize more law or do more flashcards or learn more mnemonics? It really had nothing to do with that, did it?
No, not at all. I want to say I almost did less, if that makes any sense. And what I mean by that is I wasn't constantly in a state of panic as I was for previous preparations. I just did what I could do. And I just thought, I do know enough to pass this. And I just need to show that on the exam.
Was there a moment that you can look back on when it started to be real to you that you really could pass?
I wouldn't say it was a specific moment. It was more just the cumulative effect of believing in myself.
And what did you have to do to get to that point? Because when you and I first started working together, you were very beaten up. Florida, which is a brutally difficult exam, had really whipped you hard. And you made the what I thought was a very smart choice to jump out of Florida, get into the UBE, and then you'd gotten beaten up on the UBE as well. And so the Elizabeth that I started working with was reeling from those experiences. And yet somehow you managed to pull yourself out of that mindset. What do you attribute that to?
I had faith. I had faith in God and what I was capable of. And I was in a better position logistically to pass the exam. In our conversations, I'd mentioned that the previous time I took the UBE in July, I was in the middle of a move. I just started a new full-time job. So there were a lot of sort of other factors entering into it that made it not the greatest time to be successful on the bar exam. And I think I was a bit more settled in my life in this previous exam. And it was just a shift in priorities and a shift in what I believed I could accomplish. And to be honest, just being a bit stubborn and angry that I didn't pass. And I realized I needed to do not necessarily more, but I needed to do things differently. And part of what I did differently is shift my mindset into believing I could do it.
And it was noticeable to me. You went from, I don't want to say necessarily being victimized. I recognized that that first try in the UBE, there was so much disruption in your life. It was just tough for you to lock in and get settled and focused. But when you came back to take the exam in February, you were locked in and there was this chip
Right.
on your shoulder and you just said, I'm going to make it happen. And I believed you and you believed you, which was the important part. And it started to come together, didn't it?
Absolutely. Absolutely. We all have our inner superhero we need to tap into.
I talk about Wonder Woman, but I'm thinking you're Catwoman here. That hardly seems fair. But you worked hard, but I think what people sometimes lose sight of is that it's not how much they know beyond a certain point. You have to understand the law, you have to understand the techniques and the tools. But once you've done that, it really is mindset, isn't it?
It absolutely is. And as I mentioned, doing more is not necessarily the best decision all the time when it comes to bar preparation, at least for me. Doing more creates this level of anxiety, and you can start spiraling into the deep abyss of anxiety and just being overwhelmed. And I realized being overwhelmed will not serve me whatsoever. So if I had a bad day, let's say, or I was incredibly tired, instead of panicking that I wouldn't be able to get through that day's study, I would just do something. And I would encourage people who maybe find themselves in a position where they just feel incredibly overwhelmed and they feel like they can't do it, is to just do something. And I have to say that's where I utilized photo reading and the nutshells, or even just listening to your lectures as I'm going to sleep at night, just something so you can get past that mental block of I'm not doing enough. And I think a lot of bar takers struggle with never feeling like they are doing enough or that they are enough or they're going to be enough on the day of the exam. And I think that is the psychological struggle that a lot of us deal with.
I want to talk about photo reading because I think it does play into this, Elizabeth. It seems too easy, doesn't it? It seems like this can't possibly be working. I should be parsing out the text word for word or taking copious notes. And that really wasn't necessary, was it?
No, not at all. And honestly, when I first heard of photo reading, as I've watched many of these videos and I've seen other students express the same sentiment that the first time they heard of photo reading, it just seems too good to be true. It seems strange. Like, how can you possibly read all these pages in this amount of time? And I think just giving it a chance, because if you think of it this way, I think a lot of bar takers will do almost anything if it means they're going to pass the bar exam. So you just look at it as, let me just try this tool. If it doesn't work, I don't need to do it, but it might work. And it has seemed to have worked for several people. And so that's the attitude I took. And so I would find photo reading a useful tool on those days where I just couldn't seem to focus properly on the other types of assignments, for example, and I would just photo read something. And so I just made it a habit. And I can't say that I used it all of the time, but it was a tool that I liked to fall back on to feel like I was doing something to supplement my learning, even when I didn't feel like I had that much time. And I was working full time as a lot of other takers are as well.
And it certainly is a time saver. And then I think there's the weird moment when you start to know answers and you don't know why you know them.
Exactly.
And that's when the little light bulb goes off in your head and you go, oh, maybe that's photo reading. So there you go. You had a lot of baggage that you were carrying into this. As I say, I think Florida really did a number on you. And so shedding that baggage and understanding that you were ready and capable, and then having the willingness to do something different really changed your perspective, didn't it?
It really did. And I remember you sent me a very pointed video which was very helpful, saying, Elizabeth, you've got to do something different. Whatever you did before in Florida, it didn't work. You have to do something different. And you were absolutely right. And that's what I did. And it
Yeah.
worked.
So I want to talk about the moment that you got your results because it's a little weird with the UBE, right? You're trying to hit a certain number in a jurisdiction, but really anything over 260 is a win. And so when you got your results, tell us a little bit about what that was like.
When I first got the results, so for anyone who doesn't know, but when the results are released, at least in Pennsylvania, it's on a Friday evening. They post a pass list and it doesn't have any scoring. So you don't really know at that point how you did scoring wise on the exam. You either know if your name is on that list or if it's not. And as I took the exam in Pennsylvania, my name was not on the list. So I was very sad, but I also knew that I needed to wait and see what my scoring was. And I was just really nervous, hoping that my scoring was highly improved from the last test and that I was able to be barred in other jurisdictions. And it turns out that was the case. And I'm
Yeah.
in a lucky position because my job is in house. It's not required that I'm barred in Pennsylvania or any state for that matter. It just has to be a state.
So the day you get the actual score that it's over 260, what's your reaction?
Tremendous relief and pride. I was very proud of myself after going through the horrendous feelings of not passing these exams, after putting in so much work, after so many tears, after so many nights of not enough sleep, after just the constant worry that just is always over your head as you're preparing for the exam, as you're waiting for the results. And just being able to finally let that go was transformative.
And we're very proud of you as well. It takes a certain special kind of person to persevere and hang in there and just go at it. And there may be people out there that are watching that go, oh, only 4 tries. I'm up to 10 or whatever it might be. But 4 tries means 2 years of your life that just got tied up in bar exam, right?
Absolutely. I think anyone that has taken the exam at all, and let alone those people that have had to take it more than once or multiple times, they understand. It is you feel like your life is on hold while this entire process is playing out. And there are moments where you think, why does it have to be like this? Your quality of life doesn't seem as good. You don't see your friends and family as often. You're just constantly focused on this exam and the results and the impact of whatever those results are, one way or the other. It really was meaningful to be able to look in the rearview mirror, let's say.
Again, 22 points is a huge jump. That must have made you very proud that you got that big jump in score.
I was incredibly proud. At first, I was a bit shocked, to be honest, because after failing the exam, it was incredibly satisfying to see that result. And I just chalked it up to looking at the exam in a different way, re examining how I am approaching the exam and realizing that I was capable of doing it. And there's really no reason why I should not be able to pass this.
And were you able to share this result with family and friends?
I was, and they were so thrilled because the bar taker doesn't take the exam in a vacuum. There are people that are just as concerned and wanting your success as you are. And it really means so much to those people who have been supporting you and those family members that have been supporting you through everything. It's a huge win for them as well. And we can't take that for granted.
And it's really important to remember that they're going through that process with you. So had to be sweet to be able to share with them your success.
Indeed, it was.
That's great. I want to ask this question, it's a pointed question, but would you recommend Celebration Bar Review to somebody that's repeating the exam?
I absolutely would. And the reason for that is because of my experience. I felt the program was customizable to what I needed. I was coming at this entire career from a non traditional standpoint, a non traditional law student, having had several other careers unrelated to law and working full time. I really felt like I needed a program and a coach that really understood where I was coming from and was able to customize the program in a way that would make me successful. And so I really felt like I had that with celebration. The fact that you can go back again, you don't have to pay more. Like you could until you pass. That's just great that you offer that. I think it makes people feel more comfortable maybe with the initial investment. Not that
Good.
anyone
Well,
wants to think about themselves failing the exam in the event it
that's good.
happens. Thank you for all of your help and your team, and everyone's just so wonderful and just so responsive to any question, concern. I just had such a great experience with this bar prep program. So I would encourage anyone who maybe has not been successful with a previous exam or another program to just to try it.
Great. I'm glad that we were able to do that for you. It was personally for me a real joy to be able to work with you. And obviously, we're excited when we see these results. But really, the joy was just watching the transformation, watching you go from being frightened and beat up by the exam to that moment that I realized that you had it. Sometimes we see a fire in a student's eyes, and we just know that they crossed some kind of a threshold, that there's a change in their demeanor. And there was that moment when it seemed to me that you had just decided that enough was enough. You were going to pass this exam. And when it happens that way, it's rewarding as a teacher, I got to say. So thank you for that.
Thank you. I'm just so thrilled.
I know that there are probably people watching this video who are ready to give up, right? It seems hopeless to them. You don't want them to give up, do you?
Absolutely not. Do not give up. Do not give up. Do you hear me?
Exactly.
You can do it. You can do it.
What advice would you give someone that is retaking the exam, regardless of their jurisdiction, but retaking it?
I would say you can do it. You can do it. You just have to do it.
And you invested in yourself, right? But you made the investment to get the coaching, to get the assistance that you needed. Do you regret making those investments today?
Oh my gosh, no, not at all. Not at all.
So now for you, you can get barred in several jurisdictions, and I know you're working towards that. But you can also go back and retake these other exams, Florida or Pennsylvania, right?
And I actually think I may be doing that
Yeah.
just to see if I can get an even higher score. I'm a glutton for punishment, perhaps. But if I just do decide to take it again, I will be in an even more relaxed mindset because there's not as much riding on the results. And I think that can only help the scoring to not feel like the test can take me over, if that makes sense. I'm taking over the test.
I do think it makes a difference to know that you're barred already and that your whole future doesn't depend on this test. There's just a different feeling of relief in going into all this. And then I think the other part is that you've already discovered that more is not necessarily better. And so it's a matter of being efficient with what you do.
Exactly.
Perfect.
You just have to
Thank you.
believe you can do it.
And once you believed, it happened. And so that's really terrific news. We're so glad that we could celebrate your success with you. And thank you so much for sharing your story today. Look forward to having you come back when you pass these other exams and we'll continue the saga. How's that?
Thank you so much, Jackson. That sounds great.
Elizabeth, I'm incredibly proud of you and delighted for your success. Looking forward to all the things that you're going to continue to do. And I'm so appreciative of you sharing your story today. Thank you very much. We really appreciate that. And to our audience, thank you for being with us. I hope that you're inspired by this story as I am. And we'll see you again next time. Bye bye, everybody.